there are many of our people who are thinking more deeply and more broadly, looking at it as it actually is, and are beginning to see it more in the international context and the relation that it has with the African struggle, a human rights struggle, or the struggle for human rights. And as such, we can then take it into the United Nations.
Bring about the freedom of these people by any means necessary.
No, I refused to participate in these demonstrations on the grounds that I would not pledge myself to nonviolence, because I believed, and I've always believed, in self-defense.
The aftermath of a mass shooting captured on camera, an apparently lifeless body lying on the ground in Buffalo, New York.
The shots fired, close 95 Junction. As many cars as you possibly can.
Legislation aimed at keeping the black people disarmed and powerless. At the very same time, racist police agencies throughout the country are intensifying the terror, brutality, murder, and repression of black people.
Peace, family. This month's documentary is surrounded around 3 concepts, and those concepts are community, self-determination, and self-defense. Not only are these 3 concepts and attributes linked to our liberation, but they have also been completely removed from their initial definitions and meanings when it comes to relating to our struggle, not just here in North America, but internationally. Community is not individuality. It's not reflected by the progression of a small group of our people. It's the whole, it's the collective. Self-determination is not relying on outside forces to protect our communities. And self-defense encompasses responsibility and taking up resistance. The same country that is pushing the false narrative that gun control is going to eliminate the white terrorism and white violence faced upon our communities, not only pumping billions of dollars into the budgets of their domestic policing agencies, but also are sending billions of dollars in artillery to Ukraine to spread imperialism, to spread white supremacy. Now that it's becoming more evident each day that the fate of our communities, our lives, our culture is in our hands as a people, we have to not only understand but learn from historic and contemporary organizations that aim towards revolutionary combat against white supremacy, white violence at its core.
So when Bobby Seale and Huey P. Newton opened the first Black Panther Party office on 56th and Grove Street in North Oakland, a sign in the window was painted that read, "The Black Panther Party for Self-Defense." Tonight, we're having a sit-down discussion with the Fred Hampton Gun Club Tennessee chapter in the wake of deadly mass shootings that have been happening across the nation. We wanted to sit down and have this discussion to basically talk about the need for organizing around protecting our Black communities. So first things first, go ahead and rep your organization. Tell us about yourself personally and a brief history of FHGC, mission statement, any type of projects that you guys are working on right now.
All right, peace, sister. How you doing? Hello, everyone. So my name's Brother Ty. So I'm Chief of Staff of Fred Hampton Gun Club Tennessee chapter. So just to give you a little bit of history on us as an organization. So we're Fred Hampton Gun Club, of course, and we specifically are here for the self-defense of our people. An extension of the original party back in Oakland, a new formation, times change. We all know the history of the party and what happened to it, but you still got those revolutionary soldiers ready to, pick up the banner and continue the work. So I introduce myself. I'll let my chairman and then my minister of information introduce themselves as well. And then we'll get into, a little bit more history, mission statement, goals, and demands and whatnot.
Yeah, my name is Harold. I'm the chairman for the state of Tennessee with Hampton Gun Club. My brother kind of hit it on the head with who we are. I could literally read the mission statement, but it is literally what Ty said. We are here for the self-defense and to be the vanguard for our people and training in self-defense. So, and I'm sure we'll get more in depth with the history and stuff like that. And like you said, our goals of the organization and stuff like that. So no need to kind of just dig too much into that now. I'm gonna let my guy Wolf go as well.
All right, peace, everyone. My name is Wolfgang Bronner. I serve as the Minister of Information for the Hampton Gun Club here in Nashville, Tennessee. Really can't say anything that hasn't already been said. I'm going to echo what Brother Harold said. Ty really just kind of gave a good summary of what we are about. We're about self-defense, training the masses of our people, making sure they're protected, and also making sure that they are aware and have the information that they need to be able to navigate this violent society. So.
Give us actually a brief history of the Hampton Gun Club and some historical context for our viewers who, aren't really up to speed with, the Black Panther Party and Hampton, the chapter in Chicago. Just give us some, historical context with the group.
Absolutely. So we know that with the dismantling of the Panthers, CIA, FBI, COINTELPRO, you still had the babies of the revolution, the ones that were ready to continue to fight. So today you have several Panther formations. Now, of course, we all aren't technically, members of the original party, but we all pretty much still follow that same, 10-point platform. What do we want? We want land, we want bread, we want housing, we want education. We want our brothers and sisters to be free out of those jail cells, We want the power, we want the right to determine our own destiny. So it's still the same core beliefs in essence. It's just a little different. So right now, with some history on FHGC, our founder, General Talib, he used to be a part of the New Black Panther Party, of course, another Panther formation. He wanted to break away and do his own thing. He saw that a Panther formation needed to have some type of self-defense in it. You may see a lot of Panther formations who are out here, but they're not up to date when it comes to the firearms training, when it comes to the protection of the community. And that's a big thing that the original party hit on back in the 60s. It was that at the end of the day, we're here to stop the immediate end of police brutality. So that's what we were founded. We were founded 2 years ago. I personally found out about FAGC through Brother Harold. So to all those who don't know right now, there still is an organization, NFAC. So their founder, Grandmaster Jay, he actually just got found guilty on bogus charges of pointing his rifle at a police officer in Louisville, actually, when the NFAC went down to get some insight into the Breonna Taylor case. So what the NFAC was, it was just a combination of different Black two-way self-defense formations that came together. We all know how it was back in 2020. I feel like in 2020, everyone pretty much had it up to here, and everyone who necessarily wasn't a revolutionary or activist, they started to kind of find their way into it. It woke up a lot of people in realizing that this isn't going to change unless we change it. So for myself personally, I found out about NFAC. I saw that they were in Stone Mountain in 2020. There was threats. The FBI leaked a report saying that the KKK would be coming and they were going to kill a ton of Black people by like lunchtime on the 4th of July. So some Black 2A formations got together and they went on formation in Stone Mountain. Black rifles, rifles everywhere, guns everywhere, everybody in unison saying that if this is what you're saying you're going to do, then come and do it. Because we ain't playing that game no more, but you're just going to go like what just happened in Buffalo and do these random attacks against defenseless Black people. If you want to play that game, you say you bout what you bout, and then come on out here when you got some other brothers and sisters who just as strapped up as you, and we're going to see how it goes. As you know, nothing came about that. But I'm sorry, I was getting off the rails a little bit. To bring that back, I found out about NFAC. NFAC ended up going down to Louisiana for a formation. I saw a post by Brother Harold on Instagram. This was long before I was even in Hampton Gun Club. I went down, I met Brother Harold. We went in formation. I ended up meeting General Talib, the founder of Hampton Gun Club. I met him. He brought me in as a member. And so ever since then, me and Brother Harold were like, okay. We went back to Tennessee. We was like, we know what we need to do now. We need to start doing more organizing. It's been, especially now, a lot of people are coming on to it, but it was tough coming back in 2020 because a lot of people still weren't ready to take that route of it's revolution or nothing. A lot of people still don't see the need for the rifle and understanding that the change that we're seeking, it's not going to be done through a political platform per se in the construct of how America wants you to believe it. Revolution is necessary. And so that's a little bit of my history into how I came into the organization. So I'll let someone else go.
I'll hit a little bit about just kind of how I got more involved and active in the. I always like to say the struggle because it is a consistent struggle. A lot of times with this, so it was 2020. I remember my very first post, like around the time of the protests and stuff like that. It was almost the famous one where it was like a dude running through with the flag and it was like somebody standing on top of a car and all you saw was like things burning in the background. And I was like, it feel like my soul is on fire, like just all the pain and all the agony that was just going on from the Ahmaud Arbery, I don't even need to start calling names. Like we understand. So it was just like, and then like Ty said, I saw the Stone Mountain formation. I saw other people who were just willing to do more than stand in the street and chant. And I got beyond. I had been to enough protests and I had been to enough rallies and stuff like that to where I understood that no real change comes from it for real. And a lot of times just pushing for change in the voting booth don't do it either. So I found like-minded individuals, to say the least. And it was tough. It was a lonely journey in Tennessee at first because before Ty, it was just me. And then when Ty came along, it was just us for a long time. And it seemed like we were deep. It seemed like we were deep because we were so active, but just through staying active and wanting to really build those community relationships and forcing our hand and like forging relationships with people, like people are starting to come along, people are starting to wake up and know that we're there a little bit, and which is cool until you start to realize that a lot of times in this, like people not gonna support you until they need you. And that's the unfortunate part of this. Like they don't understand that we need that support every day. And I'm not talking about financial just support. I'm talking about for real, just awareness, letting people know we're here, we're there. Sharing a post is free. Come in, they understand how this how it go. We'll get buried in the algorithm posting some real shit. Okay, so we need that too. So just again, I don't want to go into a rabbit hole, but that's how I started my journey in this movement. And for real, it's been a hell of a ride. I'm enjoying it for real, watching Ty grow. Brother Wolf being the encyclopedia to the organization right now. I don't even know which brother about to go, but I'm just, I learn something every time he start talking. So I'm gonna let the brothers speak for real and get out the way.
So I would say for me, I had always been conscious of who I am throughout my life. Now, I would say prior to 2020, a lot of that consciousness and organizing would exhibit itself in the typical realms that you see in mainstream discourse today. So, I was the guy that was out there telling folks to go to the voting booth and all that good jazz. But I think, the year 2020, it was a real special year because even during that year, I started to see that some of the things that I had been doing previously was not the way. And it was really in 2020 that I started seeing little stuff that just didn't sit right with me. I'm the type of person that, I typically try to recognize like contradictions in everything. Now, before I got into reading heavily, I didn't know how big of a deal contradictions would be, but I always been the type of guy that always would notice like when people contradict themselves, and typically when people contradict themselves, that's when you can typically kind of assume what are they actually saying. So when the year 2020 hit and George Floyd happened, and I was still hearing the same things that will essentially liberate our people, it just, at that point, it just didn't make sense to me anymore. Like, I just didn't know at that point, I didn't know what else could happen. You know, I had been the guy that was willing to go into the politician's office. I had been the guy that had been willing to like write these letters of support to petitions and whatnot. I had been that guy that was willing to sit at the voting booths and actually take people to vote. But even during 2020, I got the feeling that what was the point of all that? Like, what has happened? Like, nothing has essentially changed. So when 2020 hit, that's when I decided to get back more into reading, because I was a real bookhead, but I fell off of it when I was in college. But I decided to tap back into it. And it was through those readings that a lot of stuff that I was starting to see started to make a whole lot more sense. And to Brother Harold's point, and to Brother Todd's point, through that reading, that's when I realized that revolution is the only way. And, you know, I tell people all the time, you know, look, you can be afraid of the revolution, but the revolution ain't gonna be afraid of you. It's gonna come to you eventually. And you just have to be ready for it. And so I would say, like, before I moved to Nashville, I had already been looking up organizations that I wanted to connect with, different type of organizations that I wasn't involved in previously. You know, previously I was involved in nonprofit organizations such as NAACP and stuff like that, but I wanted more. And as I was starting to make my move towards Nashville, I came across Fred Hampton Gun Club, and I saw that Brother Harold and Brother Todd were doing more, and they were doing the stuff that I wanted to do. They were actually in the community, actually talking to the people, which I think is very important, and is an escape art that people have gotten away from. You know, they were willing to pay for stuff to make sure people had groceries, to make sure people had the simple necessities, and those are the type of brothers that I wanted to be around. That's the organization I wanted to be in. I wanted to make change now. I didn't want to wait another 4 years or 8 years for the possibility of a voting booth affecting that change. So when I got to Nashville, I want to say like 2-3 days, man. It wasn't long, but as soon as I moved to Nashville, I hit the Fred Hampton Gun Club page, IG page. Ty hit me back, and you know, I just been involved with these brothers ever since. And ever since I've been involved with them, they just been inspiring me. They've been teaching me things that I ain't never done before, such as defending myself, and I'm extremely thankful for that. And I think people who have experienced their training are also thankful for them as well. So for me, that's how I got into Fred Hampton Gun Club. Wouldn't change it for the world. So.
You guys talk about community. I hear you talking about the brotherhood, and I think that's so important, not only to our communities, but our culture as African people. So the Panthers, they had this undying love for the community, would go door to door, you know, started the initiative. So I want to hear personally from each of you, how do you define community, and what is its significance to our culture as African people?
I'll head this one off, I guess. Community to me is simply that. It's community. It's where we reside amongst each other. I think it was maybe a Brother Polite interview I seen a few years back, and he was talking about he's never lived in a Black community before. And it's because in a community we control the resources. We control the stores, we control what comes in and out. Can you name me a Black community in America that has its own hospital, controls its own educational system, has its own supermarkets, has its own military to defend it, has its own method of policing the community? We can maybe name a few cities here and there that have a few things, but we don't have all of those things. So it's like a heaven for me. It's like a Black heaven, living in a true Black community where we all view and love each other. But with the conditions that we're in now, what we can call a Black community, that's big for each and every one of us on here. Like Brother Wolf was saying, 2 weeks ago, we went to a local project, Dodge City here in Nashville. We just went, passed out some literature, some propaganda. We fed the people. We got what we could, pizza and chips through donations. We fed them, we linked up with them, and we just told them who we were because they need to know we're out here. So community is big for us. It's the family. There's so much going on right now with sexual trafficking and domestic violence, and we all play a part in everyone's home. sometimes we feel is, with our people, it's like, well, what they got going on down the street is what they got going on down the street. But no, that's not what they have going on down the street. When we start looking at it as they're an extension of us, as we are an extension of them, then I feel like we'll start getting back to that community basis. You know what I mean? So that's just what community is for me.
Man, you be tough to follow, bro. I'll take the perspective for real where community is also accountability. It's also everybody playing their part. Community is where we lack now. I feel like is men being men and accepting their role as men. Like, you shouldn't be offended by a woman saying she want to protect their provider. Those are things that being an alpha and being a male, right? That's what we say we are. We say we're supreme being, we're alphas, we're kings and all of this, all right? So I'd be outstanding in that role. I think that the same, like, I don't think that people are willing to play their role in society anymore, in the community anymore, because it may not be the most glorified role. It may not be the most, may not be the highest paid role. And for real, with our community, attention is the new drug, for real. So, but everybody don't realize that every part of the body is still essential. So I feel like we just got to get back to a part where in the community and operating as one body, for real, and everybody being willing to play their part, everybody willing to play their role. And I think that it's so important to our culture that it rolls that way, because I feel like operating as a community and operating as one, it gives us a code. It gives us principles. It gives us things that's understood without being spoke. And if we don't operate and move to that beat, then we don't have no code. And I feel like it's a reason why the culture has been suffering. I feel like it's a reason why the community has been suffering. We don't have no loyalty towards one another. We view each other as a threat versus a brother. I disarm Black men every time I walk by. I'm like, what's good, brother? You know what I'm saying? Instead of the awkward look up and down or trying not to make eye contact, like, I'm going to disarm you and let you know off top, like, we're on the same side of whatever go on in this place where we at. All right. So it's just like, I think that, like Ty said, I haven't experienced a Black community. I idolize it, for real. I would love to be a part of that, for real. And I love to play my part in that body. I'm willing to be an active participant and playing whatever role the culture and the community needs me to play in that. But I need everybody else to be willing to do the same, for real.
Yeah, so community for me, I'll take this perspective when it comes to the community. Oftentimes, and it's kind of along the same lines as what Brother Todd said, the community is often a self-reflection of what's really going on. So when you look at typical Black communities across the United States, I think we can typically draw out a list of things that are wrong with those communities. Lack of clean water, lack of sewage. There's litter everywhere. The infrastructure is failing. The housing isn't proper. Typically, when you go to Black communities across America, those are typically the signs that you see amongst Black communities. And when I look at those Black communities and whatnot, it just goes back to what Brother Ty said. The community is an extension of yourself. If you as an individual are doing well, but your community is suffering, something's off about that. And something has to be corrected about that. And oftentimes when you're tapped into the community can really give you an honest answer on what's truly going on. Just going back to what Brother Harold said about attention, everybody wants to go on social media and look for attention when speaking on certain issues, but not a whole lot of people want to turn social media off and step into these communities and actually talk to folks to ask them what it is that they truly care about. They might not care about what you posting about on social media. They just want to make sure they have food for the week. And if you're willing to go into the community and ask them that question and they tell you that, and you're able to provide that food for them for a week, you're already doing 10 times more than what other people who haven't even stepped into that community would do. So like I honestly see like the Black community is like a team sport. You know, Michael Jordan said it all the time. He wouldn't have got those 6 rings without Scottie Pippen in the team. You know, MJ was putting up, you know, superstar numbers, you know, in his early years on the Chicago Bulls, but because the team around him, it wasn't team focused around him during the beginning of his career. He didn't make it to the finals during those first early years of his career. But it wasn't until they started focusing on the team, or in this sense, the community, that they were able to get to do 2 3-peats. So, and I look at it in that perspective. If the community is doing well, then naturally us as Black African individuals, we will do great too. And if the community is failing, then by extension, us as African individuals, we are not going to be doing well either. You know, and you can see that by the oftentimes the rhetoric and the lack of care, the lack of accountability that Brother Harold and Brother Todd was speaking on. You have individuals who want to divorce themselves from their own community, and they're not accountable to anybody. They're going around doing things, not thinking about how it could affect everybody else. So you get all these symptoms when you don't connect yourself to a community, to a Black community that looks like you. So for me, community is a big thing. If the community is not together, then I don't care what nobody says. Like, us as African individuals, we won't be our 100% true selves. You know, we can, you know, this is kind of speaking for myself. We can get these degrees and whatnot and all that good stuff. But how far will that take us if we're not doing what we need to do for our communities? So for me, community is number one.
Thank y'all. And what I hear from the 3 of you guys, and really what I've been noticing myself, is just our values as African people have just been thwarted. And because we live in settler colonial America, even Africans in the African continent, they're in their own homelands, but they have suffered from colonialism and neocolonialism. As a people, our values have just been destroyed, and we have to get back to those roots of community and unity. And that really brings me into my third question and third point, where I was reading Seize the Time by Bobby Seale just a few days ago, and I saw a quote in there that said, just as Huey saw the gun as a necessary tool of Black people's liberation, he saw the young people as the basis and the foundation of it as well. So can you guys speak to me about the role, like what is the role of the youth in resistance, and how does your organization recognize this importance? Anybody can answer.
I got you, sister. So the role of the youth for us is major. It's major. I know, and I'm smiling a lot, because this, especially, I know Brother Harold, this is a subject we talk about so much. I love him. I know how it feels to be that young, misguided, ignorant, to everything with your conditions going on. I know how it feels to live that life of like what you're just used to of ignorance and just throwing your life away. But for us as a FHGC, what we do, a big thing we just did 2 weeks ago, we go into the community, and I've been reading Seize the Time myself too. So one thing Brother Huey talked about was that when they would have chapter meetings early on, where they were at the Poverty Center, they would bring the youth and literally let them come on, and they would just watch the door, and they would let them know, hey, the pigs are coming, They would give them, they'll play the lookout. So letting the youth feel important and knowing that they have a role. For us with FHGC, a big thing that we do is when we meet youth in the community, a lot of them, especially deep in the trenches, a lot of them carrying illegal firearms. A lot of them are fascinated by guns. They're fascinated by, we're going to be honest, what's going on in our neighborhoods. They're fascinated by the violence. But the thing with that is that those are our soldiers, though. That's the lumpen proletariat that they talked about back in the party. Those are the ones that if we radicalize, if we politicize, those are our soldiers. So when we go into the community, a big thing for us, I like me personally, when we were in Dodge City a couple of weeks ago, I had my rifle out, I had all my gear on me, and so many of the young brothers were attracted to that because we're not coming up to them, hey, brother, this is what you need to be doing. You need it. No, because that's not what we want to do. What we want to do is take a young brother and say, come on, little bro, I'm going to teach you not to hate yourself no more. I'm going to teach you that you still need that AR-15, but instead of pointing it at your brother, you need to be pointing it at your enemy. And we know who our enemy is. So that's a big thing for us. Like the youth is it. The youth is the revolution. A lot of people, grown people are set in their ways. You'll meet some grown people, but the youth for us, those are our soldiers. When you politicize and educate and give the youth the knowledge of self, because I want you to keep, like Brother Harold always says, when we recruit them, I want you to keep that same frustration. I want you to keep that rage. I want you to keep that mentality in you, but I don't want you turning it on your brother, man. Instead of you hating yourself, I want you to come to a level of enlightenment, realize why you're living in these conditions, and I want you to become that soldier for the people. Because then you still got an enemy out here. War is still necessary. You just don't need to be going to war in the streets against your brother. So that's my take on it.
No, you're right. Like
I wish we did more, man. I don't know what we talk about it a lot. We talk about the youth a lot. Like how do we reach and meet them where they are and then just guide them forward? I feel like a lot of times organizations like try to come in and I don't know, give them this corporate ass mindset, and they try to completely change and brainwash them. I really love the approach that we have to where like, no, man, like you have every right to feel those emotions. Like things have been done like politically towards you and us, right, to keep us in these situations sometimes. And instead of you being out here taking more risks to be in worse circumstances, like just stop. All right, get some real training with what you use, and you're gonna carry it anyway. So come here, let me show you what to do with it. All right, and then like I feel like it's not. I know that the more training they have behind guns, the more education that they have behind them, and the more awareness they have about the circumstances that surround them and where their real threat lies. Like the less conflict we'll have in our own neighborhoods and we can start to really build community. But the youth are everything. Like the youth was the revolution. Like they were 16, 14 to like 21 years old. That's young. That's young. It's super young. So, and I feel like it's the same now. I feel like a lot of people are waiting on somebody older to start just being that charismatic leader and start carrying the torch and stuff like that. But I feel like that person is going to come from the youth. I feel like it's going to take somebody young to inspire more generations and more young people like them. It's hard for an old head to inspire a young person to start to walk like them. But a young person who's walking that walk, talking that talk, and remove the blinders, because a lot of times, and I mean, just in our community, fake is real and real is like opinionated too much to where people don't know what's fact or opinion. Like for real, people have so many opinions about the truth that the truth gets lost. Like for real. So again, man, the youth are everything, and the moment we find a way to meet them perfectly where they are and bring them along, man, it's gonna be spiritual. I ain't gonna lie. We gonna feel the ancestors rejoice. Like for real. But yeah, brother, let my brother Wolf go. Go ahead.
Nah, I mean, I was just echoing what you and Brother Todd said. The youth for everything. When I'm not with Brother Harold and Brother Todd, I'm an educator. I work in public schools, so I'm around the babies like majority of the time. And I tell people all the time when it comes to the kids, they know what's up. They not dumb. They know very clearly what is going on, and they are not dumb. And what I try to strive for as an educator is to not give them that whitewash BS that I got when I was growing up, because what that does is that it lowers your confidence it lowers your values and it lowers whatever principles that you want to establish for yourself. So this past, I just got finished with my first year of teaching. So this past year, I called my room the decolonial room. And the reason why I called it that was because I let my students know first day, because I teach social studies, when you come in here and you learning about history, you're not finna get that whitewash BS that you typically get. You're just not gonna get that from me. I'm gonna tell you the real. I'm gonna keep it a stack with y'all because I know that y'all are going around and trying to look for the real, and y'all just need somebody there to give some foundation to what it is that y'all are seeing. So throughout my first year, every time my students had questions, they would come to me and they would ask, and they would ask very pointed questions that you would not expect students to have. When the Russian-Ukraine situation happened, my students came to me, were asking me about that, and I had to spend a class period just explaining that so they knew, so that they didn't get confused by the social media out there. There have been times when my kids have come and asked me about different political objectives, and I keep it a stack with them. When Brother Todd talked about how we were at the Dodge City projects like 2 weeks ago, and the kids came up to him with when he was carrying his rifle, there were two things that the kids said that I still remember. The first thing was the kids asked Brother Todd was, "Are you the military?" And Brother Todd's response to those kids was, "For y'all, I am." And the kids need to hear something like that. The second thing they asked Brother Todd, and they also asked Brother Harold and myself, is, so if the police came into our neighborhood and started shooting at us, would y'all shoot back at them? And we all told them yes, because the students need to hear, the babies need to hear something like that. Because when they hear something like that, it instills in them the confidence to want to be that soldier. To Brother Harold's point, when you're uplifting them and you're giving them that confidence, it will instill in them the values and the principles and the morals that will carry them for what they will need to be a soldier for the Black Revolution. So for me, the babies are the most important. And I would even say, this is where I kind of have slight disagreements with Brother Malcolm when he says women are the most unprotected. I personally feel like the babies are the most unprotected, because because of what I see is done to them in the public school system 5 days out of the week. So the babies are very important. They are the foundation. They got the energy, they got the heart. And unfortunately, when it comes to the babies, they haven't been corrupted by a lot of folks older than them. They haven't been corrupted by the propaganda and the rhetoric yet. They can still see the objective that we're trying to strive for. So all that needs to happen is like-minded mentors need to come around that and encourage them to seek out that objective.
All right, y'all. So can y'all explain the true role of the police in our society today, and how they play an obsolete role in ultimately protecting our communities and those who are most vulnerable, like the elders, like you mentioned, the youth? Cool.
All right. So for the police, first thing people need to understand about the police, the propaganda surrounding the police that they are here to protect and serve is just that. It is just propaganda. It is not true in the slightest. The American police, as they are instituted now, are here for two reasons only: social control and protection of private property. And if folks don't know what private property means, then rich folks stuff. So literally the foundation of the police are to beat the hell out the rest of us and protect the rich folks. That's there is no protect and serve in there for anybody when it comes to police. So oftentimes when you see police out here and they do what they do, and it doesn't make sense. Well, how come the police aren't protecting that person? Why are the police letting this happen? Well, if you understood the function of American police as it stands today, it makes perfect sense. You shouldn't even be surprised that some police won't even go out of their way to protect some of the babies that live in the hood. That's not their responsibility. And then on top of that, the American legal system justifies that indifference that they have towards our community. However, it does justify the violence that they inflict on our community. So when it comes to American police, and And one thing I want people to do is, you know, we had this mass shooting at the school last week. What I really need people to kind of like look into that perspective of the interactions that people were talking about that were happening with police. You know, people were talking about how the school shooter was inside, the police were outside, had their backs turned. They weren't going inside the school to shoot the shooter, but they were staying outside, making sure the parents couldn't get inside to protect their kids. And in some instances, they handcuffed some of them. The reason why I bring that up is because people really, really need to hone in on that situation, because in that situation, it gives a true perspective of just what the American police are. And in the case of Africans here in America, they are literally the modern day slave catchers. Folks cannot change my mind on that. That is just how they are. Because if we examine the economic system, people are still in a form of slavery that it wasn't in back in the other day. And the police are an arm of the government that makes sure people are staying in line and whatnot. It's the reason why President Biden is giving millions and millions of dollars to the cops while the rest of us are out here suffering, trying to make it through inflation, because they know what's up. They know people are going to start getting agitated eventually, and they know the American police are going to need that money to beat our asses and put us back in our houses and get back into work. So when people come to me and ask me, like, what is the purpose of policing? As it stands now, they control us, they protect rich folks, and they keep Africans and Americans in our positions. That is their function. But you know what I will say is that, like what has been said, I truly believe in an independent Black nation for Africans here in America. And when it comes to the conversation of policing might not even look like how it looks now. It might not even be called policing. But for the purposes of the question, when it comes to American police, they're not here to protect and serve. They're here to beat our asses and protect the rich folks. And people really need to hone in on that fact, like hug it on their hearts real tight at night. Understand that perspective, because no matter the rhetoric that is put out here to protect American police, none of it holds up when you look at the research and the data and actually look at the experiences of the people who are affected